talked to the nurse, and she said my hemoglobin will drop enough that I will just, go in my sleep.
So you can never predict death. That's one of the big things that you learn to do, is you don't pretend to be God. You really have no idea when someone's going to die.
It started 2 weeks ago. He started falling and we noticed symptoms and we brought him to the hospital, and I think we both knew once we bring him to the hospital, he probably won't be coming home.
I always tell families you have to prepare for the worst. You don't know how long you're going to have, but you always hope for the best.
I believe there's such a thing as a healthy death, if you know what I mean, that we can enable people to have better experiences living through dying and worse experiences.
When you're trying to look after someone in the community, they might call you in the middle of the night in huge pain that just started, and you have no supplies. You have, no intravenous morphine or things like that. I mean, you tried to anticipate what someone might need, but death is unpredictable. You don't know.
Liz would come home after work and say, "Mom, we need a hospice here. I'm so tired, and we're all tired of having to send people to hospital when it's the end of life and there's nothing a hospital can do for them."
I think there has to be a better way. There has to be a better way than these such confused and conflicted directions. Hospitals are designed to enable people to live, not to die in a beautiful and a dignified way. They're designed to keep people alive as long as possible.
And it's lonely. They don't get the proper care because the nurses haven't time. And what they really need is a home atmosphere and tender, loving care and pain control.
If it's a bad death, they always have the what ifs, They find the grief and bereavement difficult and they can't move on. If they have a good death, it uplifts everybody. It uplifts the whole family. So
Jamie, at the age of 46, was dying of cancer. And Tony and I went out after several times for serious surgery. And in the end, in 2003, he died.
Terrible death. Mom had nowhere to sit at his bedside. She ended up sleeping on the floor with her knitting bag under her head because there was no pillows. And he had a 6-year-old son who was terrified to visit him in hospital. It wasn't a good death, not in a good place.
A wonderful hospital on the palliative care floor, wonderful nurses, but it was a hospital.
We thought palliative meant that we could be by his side and it would be a comfortable room, an easy place for a family to visit, and that he could feel relaxed there, but it's not. It felt cold in a way and mechanical, and we just didn't picture this hospital room looking at an industrial roof outside his window that's where he spent his last days.
We have physicians in clinics, and we go to them, and then we have hospitals if you're more ill, and then we have, if you're ill and dying, we should have hospices available to everyone who cannot manage at home.
We were sitting around the kitchen table after Jamie had died, and I said, Mom, we really need a residential hospice.
And that was when my children all said, "Mom, let's start the hospice."
When my stepfather, Tony Bethell, was about 82, he developed malignant melanoma, and eventually it spread to his lungs, his brain, and his bones. They wanted to send him to a palliative care unit down at Princess Margaret and told Mom she wouldn't be able to handle him at home. And she said, "I can handle him at home. My daughter's a nurse, and my son-in-law is a doctor, and we're going to look after him at home," and we did.
He said, "Nobody should have a lonely death."
Is that Tony Bethell?
That's Tony Bethell, my husband, and he was in the Great Escape.
He was very young when he was captured during World War II. Yeah, he spent his 21st birthday in prisoner of war camp.
The most notorious of the special prison camps for airmen was Stalag Luft 3.
the scene of the Great Escape.
So Tony was one of 22 who survived, and I think spent the rest of his life feeling guilty that his friends died and he lived.
And he said nobody should have a lonely death. So that was the beginning of the idea. It's incredible. The whole community has joined and supported us. It just became a dream.
Everywhere she went, she'd talk about, do you know what hospice is?
In England, hospice is a noun. She said, I want to make hospice into a word of action.
Because she gave, all her friends gave, people had confidence that this was really going to happen. So it took from 2005 to 2010 when we opened. So 5 years to raise the money, break ground, build it, and open it.
It's the most exciting thing that's ever happened.
We didn't want institutional at all. We wanted people to walk in the door and go, wow, I've come home.
The light coming from the windows, Bethel is just full of light and openings.
So if you walk into Bethel House, you can see light coming in north, south, east, and west through all the windows. Huge vaulted ceilings.
The interior design and the decor and the furnishings became really important.
The attention to detail, I think, is huge.
It's very important to most people at end of life and during life, but specifically end of life, to be in touch with nature. And so we specially chose this 4-acre property. We put our hospice right in the center. And so every view is of nature, birds, flowers.
We have a wonderful landscape committee that spends, I don't even know how many hours tending the soil.
When you work hand in hand with Mother Nature, nice things happen.
You know, when I think about Bethel, I think about Bethel as a person. I think of this, it having a spirit, a body, a mind, a heart. It's a complete entity.
The building people talk about all the time has a feel to it when you walk in.
It's like going to somebody you love very much and them embracing you and not holding you too tight and not pushing you away, just holding you just the right way.
You can't sort of underestimate the power of this place and what a good death means to people.
And the fact is that families can come in all kinds of configurations and live with the person who's dying as if they were in their own home. You have a chance to live through dying, to experience it fully, to not push it away, to not, close your eyes to it, but to actually feel it and go through it. Not everyone does, not everyone wishes to, not everyone can, but there is that opportunity at Bethel Hospice to do that.
Your needs are what's important. You need to tell me what it is that you want.
My role is to educate them, empower them with the education.
My role is to ensure they have as peaceful a death as possible, whatever that takes.
The thought of him passing in the hospital was a lot harder to take than passing here.
I think because when people work there as a nurse or a staff member or they volunteer there, you're there because you want to be and you understand how precious life is.
That we are able to alleviate and reduce people's anxiety and fears.
I always made a promise to myself when I started working here that nobody would die alone.
When it happens, we're going to be heartbroken, but I need you to know we're going to be okay. And I wasn't always sure if we would, but being here in just a matter of days, I do feel like we're going to be okay. And mainly because he's taken care of. And they even assured us if it happens and we're not here, someone will be here with him.
I have to say that Liz's and Lorna's ways and spirits are infectious. And they have inspired many people along the way to do things and do them in ways that they never dreamed possible.
Lane and I came here knowing that my dad would be taken care of, but they've also taken care of us, which we weren't expecting.
I'm just proud to be a part of Bethel.
It's been a place of absolute love.